on my 8 robot farm, it's a very steep and challenging dairy farm that we've farmed on for 4 generations, and obviously running a grazing system on a steep farm has created challenges over the years. After experiencing robots for 3 years, I knew that cows walk in a grazing system, so I wasn't nervous about doing it on a more steep and undesirable farm. But even after seeing robots for 3 years, I'm still surprised by how well the cows do walk. Recently, we've started re-grazing the back steepest, remotest sections of our farm that previously we'd stopped grazing conventionally just because it was well over 2 hours to get cows back to the dairy and too steep to ride a motorbike in, so someone was on foot to get them out of the paddock and then a 2-hour march back to the dairy. Since going to robots, we're actually grazing those areas out again now, and it's amazing to see the cows spread out over the hill, over this steep country 2 kilometres from the dairy, and go home that night and come back in the morning and there's none there. They've all walked back and milked themselves. So even after 3 years of voluntary milking cows grazing, that still amazes me when I see that.
Welcome to the 12th episode of the Dairy Experience podcast. My name is Rene van Dalen, Marketing Manager Lely Australia, and your host of this episode about grazing in combination with robotic milking. Our aim with this episode is to have a chat with 3 robotic milking dairy farmers about their experiences of grazing in combination with robotic milking and taking away a few of those misconceptions which are still out there today. If you have listened to our previous episode about robotic milking takes off in South Australia, then you are familiar with our guests in this episode, which are Essa Jacobs, welcome.
Hello.
Heath Williams, welcome.
Good evening.
And Jake Connor, welcome Jake.
Thank you.
I'm here with 3 farmers who are having at this moment 4 different robotic milking farms with a total of currently 22 milking robots over the 4 farms divided. I want to start talking about grazing and some common misconceptions on grazing, but first, grazing in combination with robotic milking. Do you consider this as a step forward in your grazing strategy, Heath?
Yes, I do. So, I'm sort of a little bit different because, so we actually, as I mentioned in the previous episode, I work with my parents as well. And that herd is full TMR. So we stopped grazing there altogether around 12 months ago. Cows are all in a shed, milked conventionally. I've always liked grazing cows. So started up in February, started grazing again on my farm, and I can see the benefits of having 3 allocations instead of 2. So it gives you sort of a bit more room to allocate correctly. Like it's, if you're not spot on one allocation, you can adjust a little bit on the following one. And I think it just works. My personal view is that it can work either way. I think like fully housed with robots, I'd be happy to go down that path in the future if I wanted to, if I was going to expand a great deal. But for now, the grazing and also grazing and a combination of supplementary feeding is working brilliantly for me.
Good to hear. Thanks, Heath. How's that for you, Jake? Do you consider grazing in combination with robotic milking as a step forward, and why is that?
I see it as a massive step forward, and probably for me an unexpected step forward. So going into robots, I believed and I saw by talking to farms and seeing farms that you can graze with robotic milking. Cows will walk. I didn't have those doubts. What I didn't expect was that the biggest benefit we'd get out of our robots was the benefits that we're getting out of grazing. So that's what caught me off guard a little bit. The fact that the cows do walk better than you think they'll walk. We actually get higher intake, so we're actually getting 3 kilos dry matter more intake of pasture when we're fully grazing grass than what we could in a conventional milking system, and we're getting a more even control of our residuals, so less overgrazing when the cows are hungry, but less undergrazing when the cows are full. We can get it more consistent. So I think, and it's not the robots. The robots aren't the reason why we can get better pasture use. It's voluntary milking. It's the cows not being a herd. It's the cows being voluntary. It's every cow in the herd being at its separate part of its individual day, and we need the robots to enable us to milk voluntary. So that's the big step forward, and I think that one of the biggest advantages that we're going to get on our farm is, yes, an increase in pasture use per cow, but an increase of pasture utilisation per hectare. I think we will actually get that because of robots.
Interesting. Thank you, Jake. If I'm right, Jake, you are 3 years in with grazing. Do you see year by year improvement? Do you see big differences, let's say, compared to year 1 to year 3?
A big jump out of the training phase. So the training, there's a training phase of, yes, my cows milk themselves, my cows voluntary walk. You could say your cows are fully trained after 4, 5, 6 months of having robots, because they're milking themselves, it's all working good. To get the pure benefits out of things like optimal cow movement and optimal grazing and starting to get those benefits, I don't believe that happens until after 12 months. So I think you see a big jump between year 1 and 2 for those extra benefits. Carrying into year 3, probably not a big extra benefit, because the cows have already adapted to that system. You are going to get some benefit, because as each year goes past, a higher percentage of your herd has only ever been milked in robots and nothing else. So that I think is another benefit that'll come slowly, but certainly not as the bigger impact that you get after year 1.
Interesting that you say that, Jake. That you say, you have a training phase of 4 to 6 months, and after 12 months, really that the cows know the rhythm and know how to go with it. That's a good bridge towards Asher. Asher, can you already say that grazing in combination with robotic milking, that it is a step forward in your grazing strategy, or is that too early yet?
Probably too early yet. Like at the moment, it's about as good as it ever was, really. Like I don't think there's a whole lot of difference. Like we're grazing the pasture down to probably similar to what we used to where we're happy with. They all seem pretty happy. We are at the point where the herd will be a bit mixed. Some of them will go charging out at gate change almost regardless. And we calve 3 times a year, so some of the ones that are more late lactation will happily sit there and just keep on grazing that pasture down for a lot longer than the rest, which, it probably helps really. First 3 weeks of startup, anyone who's done some of that early on might have the same experience with me, where the cows just won't leave the paddock, and it's the best we've ever grazed the farm down ever, including dry cows. But probably too early to say really. We're 8 months in.
Will be interesting to come back on that next year at the same time. So maybe let's make a note of that, and we will come back on that, Asher. I would like to talk about misconceptions on grazing in combination with robotic milking. Heath, what do you think about what are the common misconceptions on?
Well, I had the equal amount of people when it was known that I was putting in robots. I would say I'd have equal amount of people coming up to me and saying, grazing is the way to go with robots. And then the same amount of people would come up to me and say, don't know about grazing, but if you're going to put robots in a barn, that's definitely the way to go. And these are all people that had no idea, So, and like I got no issues. I think grazing is bloody brilliant with the robots. But you do hear, your cows won't walk, and my cows won't walk.
And where do you think, where is that misconception coming from, that the cows won't walk?
It's coming from people that don't understand. Yeah, I guess, and it's something new, so people are scared about it. They're scared of the unknown. But
that's a classic one.
My cows won't walk.
Yeah, but and even when you have you have people stand on your farm watching your cows walk, they go,
Yep.
I can see that it's working, but it's not going to work for my
Yeah.
cows because my cows won't walk.
Yeah. Well, like I, thought, are my cows going to walk? But I guess it's having faith in, seeing it working on other people's farms, and I'm sure everybody's cows are a bit different, but really they're all cows.
Everyone's got a stubborn, lazy cow at the back of the herd, and we had multiple, and they all walked.
Yeah, I would say
You had heifers, so a little bit different.
Yeah, and like you get there's sort of cows that that sort of aren't really fond of people too. But the robots are no worries at all. And I think that's probably off topic a bit, but I think the cows probably do. We're a natural predator to the cows, whereas the robots aren't. So I think that sort of helps a bit once they're in the shed.
The amount of flighty cows you can get that, especially milking for the first time, look like they are going to be the biggest problem in the world. And you check the stats the next morning and they've walked through in the middle of the night and just milked themselves without a care in the world.
Yeah, when no one's around.
Yep. Just happens more often than you'd think.
Yeah.
So they really have their own natural rhythm, and when you leave them alone,
Leave them alone,
they
yeah.
will find their own rhythm in that sense.
Yeah. Well,
I guess for me, the misconception, it leads into that my cows won't walk, but it starts from, well, robot cows have to be hungry to walk. So leading on to that, and well, from what, like I've said, what I've experienced, we're actually getting more pasture intake into our cows, but it's hard for an outsider to assess that, because typically if we have an advisor or another farm or a discussion group come out in a grazing dairy farm, we'd all march out into the paddock at 10 o'clock in the morning, a couple of hours after milking, the cows have had a guts full, sitting down ruminating, we'd assess rumen fuel, we'd assess how much pasture's left, all the cows are doing the same. Well, you can't do that now. So you're walking into a paddock and you've got every cow in that paddock at a different stage of their day. So it's a little bit like people looking at calves on automatic calf feeders. You can't ever assess whether they're full or hungry because every calf's different. So you get that same feeling in a robotic grazing herd, but as long as you're doing your management right and providing the quality feed and the right amount of feed, those cows are actually getting more intake into them than what they used to, even though if it doesn't look like it.
And on that note of they have to be hungry to walk, it's not necessarily hungry, they just need to have something better that they want to go to. So if they're in a stale rank paddock and they know a fresh one's about to open up, they're going to get up and sort of run to the fresh one. Or conversely, if you have some reasonable feed coming through in the robots, they're just going to come back to want to get a grain hit. Like they come back for the little sugar hit in the robot and then look around and go, oh, well, I guess we might as well carry on.
Or if you have poor quality feed out in the paddock, they know that and they won't come to the robots because they don't want to go to that poor quality feed after the robots.
Yep.
Potentially.
Sorry, Ash.
You go.
I would say that, quality feed is very important, or quality forages is very important in dairy farming in general. Anytime we're chasing milk, the milk's not doing what it should be. We can generally find that forage quality is not as good as it should be. And on the other side, like when the cows are doing really well, in general you can have a look at what's going on there, and forage quality is generally better than expected. And I think the robotic milking, it kind of highlights that. Like you got to have good quality forages for your cows. You've got to have good quality forages to assist them to walk, I think.
Well, they want to do it.
They want to do it, yeah.
Yeah, we've got to give it that, and they'll reward us by doing it.
By doing it, yep.
They also do sometimes become a little bit keen to drop the load, so to speak, to go with the feed. Like they do start to become a bit uncomfortable when they're carrying a full load of milk.
Yeah, well, that's the other part of it too. Yep.
Yeah, it's part of their natural instinct of
100
years of breeding dairy cows. They want to be milked, so it's all part of that natural instinct. It all helps.
So I want to talk about pre-robots and this year I went to Tasmania to Gary Carpenter there, and I was talking about pre-robots, and I asked Gary, okay, Gary, what were you thinking about grazing and robotic milking pre-robots? And he said to me, yeah, I simply could not get my head around. I was not believing that my cows were going to walk. Everybody within Lely said, okay, they will walk. And he said from day one, or let's say in the first couple of weeks, they were walking. And he said, I was amazed by seeing that. Now I'm curious to hear from you, pre-robots. Jake, what were you thinking about grazing and robotic milking?
Pre-robots, I believe that you needed ABC grazing to get that cow flow through. So I'd heard and seen enough that you needed that ABC grazing, that 8-hour interval. I guess trying to explain to someone or getting explained to you, it sounds overly complicated and it sounds daunting, ABC grazing. When you start doing it, it's actually really easy. In fact, I think it's easier than traditional methods of grazing. It's consistent, stays the same, the cows flow through, and I just view it as managing 3 individual pasture rotations on my farm. Instead of looking at a whole farm, I look at 3 individual farms.
And pre-robots for you, Asher, have you visited some other robotic milking farms in the area where you have seen grazing in combination with robotic milking work? And what were you thinking when you have seen that?
Well, Jake's our neighbouring farmer, so there's a pretty good start there. I never really thought it would work until Jake put it in. Like, I actually thought we'd have to wait for virtual fencing, but it seems like that's not the case because our cows are walking fine. Jake probably proved the concept. We did a trip around Victoria as well to see how everyone else was doing it, but that was sort of enough evidence I really needed. And unlike Jake, instead of having 3 separate farms, ours is very much mergeable, I guess. We've probably got a few set paddocks on each laneway that they have to go to for ABC. Then after that, there's a lot of variability where they can go. They always leave the dairy in the same direction each time of day, but after that, our laneways cross over pretty heavily. They can link up in different spots, so we can hit a different paddock on probably multiple directions.
Yeah, interesting. Pre-robots for you, Heath. I know you did some field research even in Ireland, for multiple reasons. But
so, like everybody told me it'd work. The Lely guys said it would work. But obviously, like, it's one of those things that you got to see for yourself, I thought, to see it working. We went to Ireland for 3 weeks. Would have been October 2023. August 2023. To see some family, but also to look at Lely robots. So we got onto 3 farms over there and could see it working. And also obviously they're right into the grazing over there. Not just see it working, but see how it worked and how to best do it, I guess. But not have done it. I mean, if we went back now and had a look, we'd probably learn a lot more. But just to see that it worked and how it worked. But one of the things that I took away from looking at the grazing on Lely robots in Ireland was that the infrastructure that you need for grazing is quite minimal. You actually don't need a lot at all. Some laneways and water troughs, or drinkers as they call it. And then, you just need your temporary fence rolls and posts, and they had them going everywhere. If laneway got a bit wet here, well, you'd run another strip, another laneway over there. Like, it's amazing what you can do with a temporary fence reel. So we've sort of, done that as well. And
that best practice, have you copy-pasted that to your farm, or can you tell a bit more how grazing is going on your farm?
We've had a bloody dry year, but we've grazed whenever we could. We're still grazing now. You can just the way you look at a paddock, like some of the paddocks there, the paddock they're in now would be about 30 hectare paddock. But just the ways you don't know until you try it, until you see it done. The ways you can split up a paddock with a temporary fence reel.
Have you noticed? Have your cows gone through less reels than they used to?
Well, I hadn't had a lot of experience running out temporary fences with grazing cows, but
because mine are in, we got a lot less going through fences than used to happen.
Yeah, well, I think it's only probably happened once or twice. I think they've gone through, but they know there's power in there, and they don't go, and they know they're getting a fresh break too, so they go looking for that, and when they find it, they're there. But you'd be amazed at bloody different ways you can split up a paddock, like with a couple of fence reels, and and the cows know it, they look for it, and off they go. So I would say the infrastructure that you need for grazing is you can get away with pretty minimal, I think, which makes it sort of easy. Like we'll oversow all the grazing area too. So you wind up the reel and pull your stakes out, and you've got 30 hectares you can do in one hit. So
You sick of setting fences yet though?
Not too bad. Nah, so like what I started was what we sort of saw in Ireland was having a backing fence. Mm-hmm. So your backing fence becomes your front fence for the next grazing, which works really well. But on big paddocks, you're sort of running out 500 metres or more every day. But what I've started doing now is because my thought was, well, you don't want to go over the same piece of dirt twice. But I think if you can probably go over the same piece of dirt twice, and there's not a huge issue at all, and it's quite a big labour saving as well. So running out your backing fence and splitting it in half.
Right.
So every second, so you're only running a 500 metre wire every second day, and you just got a strip in between that you pull off.
Ah, yeah.
So the cows are going over the same piece of dirt twice.
Yep.
So
remembering also Heath farming in what we'd call marginal dairy land. So he's splitting larger areas, but they might only be taking off 200-300 kilos per hectare at the most. So
that's correct. Yeah, we average rainfall where we are is 450 mils a year. It's sort of marginal dairying country, I guess. Yeah, possibly more suited to putting the cows in a barn too down the track possibly. So that's definitely on the cards.
Talking about grazing and grazing strategy, Asher, can you tell a bit more how the ABC grazing strategy is on your farm? What are your gate times?
We run 7:30 in the morning, which usually means that, if you're heading out by 7, you can go fetch if there's any stragglers, which we probably still got a few. We're still in the first year, so they're all ones that are generally due to be dried off the next couple of months. So they're not a big deal if they stay behind. 7:30, 3 p.m. and 10 p.m. at the moment. And it will almost certainly just stay like that. That seems to work pretty well for us at this point anyway. It's always hard to say until you've been through a couple of years, but at this point it's pretty good. We use an agronomist to come around every 2 weeks, and he just basically checks out paddock growth and says how much is in there and helps draw up a bit of a list of where they're going. And we'd been told at the start that could get a little tricky with sort of having to adjust on the fly, but it's worked pretty well. Like, just got to adjust the odd paddock here and there if it looks grossly over or under, but you find out pretty quick if it is, and then you just adjust from there. Our laneways are very flexible, as we said. Like, we can hit the same paddock off 2 different laneways usually. So if we got a surplus of grass in one area of the farm, we just hit it harder and go from there.
And you said that you use an agronomist who is measuring the paddock growth, and so you're determining a strategy together. How did the agronomist look to robotic milking and grazing?
He was probably a little bit daunted, but Jake being down the road with all the advice probably helped a fair bit. And I've worked heavily with him for the first probably 6 months or so, and every 2 weeks we go, oh look, I think they need a bit less on this gate change time, maybe a bit more on this one. Just adjust a little bit what we're feeding here and there, just to get them to move overnight mostly. Probably give them a bit less in the afternoon grazing from 3 p.m. was probably the main one. But we just did constant adjustments of, I guess the key part of the first 6 months was how far the cows were eating down. That was probably a bit more variable early on. Some of the newly sown stuff, they'd raise it down to the ground and things like that. But once we got a handle on that, and after 6 months, the last 2 or 3 months, we've sort of just left it, and every 2 weeks find out how they're going and set a new rotation, and if it looks grossly over or under, we just adjust, but usually it's pretty close. Yeah. Near enough's close enough.
Interesting. Good to hear and interesting to hear. Curious to hear from you, Asher, still. How far away is your furthest paddock from the dairy?
1.8 to the gateway maybe, and then it's probably reasonable size paddock, so if we end up splitting it can be a bit more. Yeah. But it's probably pushing 2 kilometres, and they seem to walk pretty well. I've got a funny feeling that they walk better because we can hit it off 2 different raceways. We originally always planned to send them there at 7:30 in the morning as sort of like that's the one they march to, but sort of found that it works better if they go there at 10 p.m. that night. They don't really realise they're walking that far until they get there, and then by the time it hits 7:30 the next day, they sort of get tricked into going, oh well, we got nothing better to do now all day, and they sort of wander back. But haven't had much of a trouble with the far away ones.
That's good to hear. Thank you, Asher. I want to move to you, Jake, and about your grazing strategy and about your gate times. Can you tell a bit more?
Our gate times are exactly the same as Asher, and we never change them, so we've never altered those gate times in 3 years, because I believe that it's that habit of the gate times that drives the cows as much as the feed. We're heavily focused on pasture use. Pasture use for us is the most important key aspect of our farm, so it's the biggest priority is pasture use. So we do fortnightly pasture inventory, set a grazing rotation, and like I said, both our farms are evenly split, so it's exactly a third of the farm in each grazing section. When we set up for robots, we made sure that it was evenly split, and then we create 3 individual grazing rotations, one for A, B and C, and obviously look at that pretty intensely, being the number one priority thing. So that's how we manage our pasture. Yep. And it works really, really well. And interesting from you to hear, Jake, is as well. We are here now in South Australia. You see quite some farms in South Australia, but you also see quite some farms in North Victoria and also in Gippsland. Are there big differences in grazing in combination with robotic milking in South Australia compared to other states in Australia? I think it comes back to the fundamentals of grazing dairy cows. So that's different per region, depending on how much you grow, what you grow. Even within this room, we've got farms 100 kilometres apart, and it's like 2 different worlds. So, but at the end of the day, when you've got robots, the key fundamentals of how you graze your pastures stay the same. Leaf stage, growth rates, rotation lengths, how much allocate per cow, none of that changes. So if you've got a good aspect on that, you're a good pasture manager, and you embrace the voluntary milking, so you don't fight against it, but you embrace that it's a different way of doing it, and embrace that this could actually be beneficial for me and my cows, then you can turn yourself into becoming a great pasture manager, and your cows will thank you for it, and you'll thank your cows for it as you sit there and watch them march back to the dairy after grazing out a paddock. But at the end of the day, those fundamentals don't change. And we as a grazing dairy industry know what they are. We've just got to adapt that to voluntary milking.
Yes. Thank you. And Heath, about your grazing strategy, and do you have the same gate times as those gentlemen?
No. So my gate times are... probably should have talked to Jake a bit more beforehand, but sort of what we saw in Ireland, and was suggested by Jess, I think. I think consistency is the key. So if we were to change, we'd only be changing once. So A is from 6 p.m. until 2 a.m. and then B is from 2 a.m. until 10 a.m. and then C is from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. That seems to be working well. I don't know if the gate times really need changing, but I think the consistency is probably what the cows like, and that was sort of drummed into me sort of once we started, even before startup, talking to the Lely guys, that consistency is the key. If you don't want to fetch cows, you got to keep things consistent. Our cows will go the same direction at those times, regardless of whether they go past the loafing area and graze, or whether they if the grazings, they're running out of graze, they'll go down in the same direction, down the same laneway. They'll just go off to a loafing area on the side if there's not enough grazing available.
Yeah, I think that's key.
Same direction, same times. They know what's going on all the time. And I think, so I guess my plan is to grow great forages, graze them where possible, and where it's not possible, to conserve the best quality forages as possible and feed it back to them when they need to be fed back to them. So it's all about growing good forages.
That depends on a lot of factors, of course.
It does, it does. And like, that's always the plan, was grow great forages, and we sort of did before startup. We grew good forages and we had them there ready for startup. Started up, fed them, and then grazed, and then didn't get had 200 mils of rain instead of 400 mils of rain, and now we're sort of trying to buy great quality forages as well. But I think no matter what, if you're buying them or growing them or grazing them, you got to have good quality forages. So that's the main aim.
Indeed. Well, I would like to go almost towards the end of this podcast, but not without asking you all, what are the advantages of grazing and robotic milking you did not realize that would come with the robots?
I've probably already addressed that one. Mine is the increase in pasture intake and the increase in pasture use per hectare. The better, having an actual better control on grazing than what we used to. That was what I didn't realise that had come.
Yeah, I didn't really expect them. I wasn't aware that they were going to start eating more. And the first month of startup wasn't quite prepared for them to sit in a paddock with an open gate and refuse to come out and just graze it down to dirt and basically get to clean up every paddock on the farm for the first month until they decided to start walking. I mean, half the herd walked well really early, but last 100 just took a little bit longer.
I think the benefits is not having to sit on a quad bike and walk cows 2 kilometres. Let them do it themselves. That's a benefit, and it's pretty good to see.
So it's good to hear. Thank you, Jake. What would you say to fellow farmers who still have the misconceptions that cows are not walking? What would you say to them?
I would say that you do not have to sacrifice pasture use to go robotic. So I just wholeheartedly believe that you don't have to sacrifice any pasture use. And in fact, I challenge anyone that's looking at robotics or moving forward that have an open mind, embrace voluntary milking, and look this as an opportunity, not only that it's going to be better for our life and our cows and all the data and all that great stuff. If we're talking about grazing grass, I see it as a challenge to say, let's use robots and actually improve and increase pasture utilisation, which for the Australian dairy industry still is the number one priority.
And grazing and robotic milking. We're going to close off the topic, but is there anything, gentlemen, what we have missed in this episode, what you would like to address?
I don't think so. I'm looking forward to having a bit better season next year and getting right into it like you boys.
You're dry land farming, so it's a little bit different at the moment. Whereas myself and Jake generally still have a fair bit of irrigation cranking to help out.
And you have started up in the dry season ever recorded in South
Yep.
Australia, so that was a bit unlucky.
But I'm looking forward to sort of having a good crack at it. Good crack at it next year and getting some more grass into the cows and getting some more money out of them.
Short answer is, I think the cows that you don't think are going to walk are like, they surprise you. The cows that don't walk are quite often the ones that sort of surprise you. And even like if I say not walking, they're generally still coming back sort of like every second grazing or so, and they're still getting through, and it's still okay. It's just they might be a lazy cow they didn't like much to start with. If you really like a cow, you can generally find a way to help convince her.
That was one of the big things that that I was told by we sort of don't the advisors around here didn't have a lot of experience with robotic milking, and one of the big things was cows not walking late lactation. And now that so majority of these cows are calved in February and been mated, there's actually a couple been dried off already now to calve down again and still travelling. So I think if you get your forages right, you got good quality forages and you're allocating it right, they're going to walk there, and they're going to walk as they're still going to walk in late lactation. That was one of the biggest issues I didn't really have, but biggest issues that the advisor nutritionist had going to robots was late lactation cows. So we can cross that off. It's not an issue.
They do walk there. Thank you very much for that quote, Heath. And well, ladies and gentlemen, I would say this wraps up our episode on grazing and robotic milking. That goes hand in hand. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode, learned something about it, and if you have any questions related to grazing and robotic milking, feel always free to get in touch with us. We are more than happy to answer any question you might have, or if you're interested to visit one of those farms here in South Australia or in general, we are more than happy to direct you in the right way. For now, thank you very much for listening, and we wish you a great rest of your day. Bye bye.
Thank you.